against humanity under the Rome Statute, Article 7, Section 1, of murder, extermination, torture, and rape. And count 2, war crimes under the Rome Statute, Article 8, Section 2, of intentionally attacking and pillaging. How do you plead?
Not guilty.
Your Honor, I would like to make 2 points very clear, as they will have to guide us as we go deep into our proceedings. First, that the accused was the head of state and that he had enormous influence over all 3 organs of government, the executive, the legislature, and that of the judiciary, including the media, the 4th estate. Second, that the accused was also the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Sudan, meaning he directs them to go into action, he gives them directives. Your Honor, in 2003 to 2008, there existed a protracted conflict in Sudan, southern Darfur, to be precise. This conflict actually existed between the government of Sudan and that of armed groups, particularly the Sudanese Liberation Movement Army and the Justice and Equality Movement, commonly known as GEM, for their acronym. This conflict, Your Honor, ignited an incident that took place at the El Fasher airport in April 2003. It was between the government of Sudan and these armed groups. After the incident, Your Honor, the accused failed to behave like the president of a nation. Instead, he chooses to behave like a rebel leader. And he declared war against his own Sudanese people. Your Honor, the accused, after this incident at the Al Fasher airport, issued out a general call for the mobilization of the Janjaweed militias. This became a counterinsurgency attack designed by the accused with intent and purpose to kill innocent people. The counterinsurgency, Your Honor, was carried down to the letter by the accused. You may want to ask how. The accused actually armed all Sudanese forces under his control, including their allied, the Janjaweeds. They were then instructed by the accused to attack and kill innocent civilians in the Kalma camp in southern Darfur, which was home for 90,000 internally displaced persons, Your Honor. I would like to state at this point that this was not just the first attack. There were a series of similar attacks, Your Honor. This event took place in the morning of the 25th of August 2008, when innocent civilians were fast asleep, Your Honor. The Janjaweed were particularly trained and supported by the accused to cause mayhem on these innocent civilians. They arrived in the camp together with the Sudanese armed forces, shouting slogans like, "Kill them all, they are slaves." And indeed, the killing was carried out constructively as planned by the accused, Your Honor.
We do not and will not be contesting the events of what happened. That is not what's being on trial to hear today. Because you are holding this trial in direct contradiction to international law, and I'll point out why. Sudan has not ratified the Statute of Rome. It is a signatory. By definition, it is therefore a third state unto the treaty. So the court may not, Article 98 states, the court may not proceed with a request for surrender assistance which will require the requested state to act inconsistently with its obligations, as Omar Al-Bashir is the head of the state, under international law with respect to the state or diplomatic immunity of the person or property of a third state. So this court does not hold any legal sovereign jurisdiction over the sovereignty of...
I'd like to ask you to be careful. You're walking a very thin line. Mr. Collins, you're not challenging the authority or integrity of the court. You are addressing the crimes which has been...
Certainly. In that regard, the prosecution needs to establish how that the head of state is accountable to this court if it is to be guilty of any crime of responsibility. Because this is what this is about, responsibility. Is this about the individual responsibility of an individual or that of a state? And that's what I'm putting to the judges. You need to be able to distinguish that. You need to be able to identify the individual actions and not the capacity of the state. So that is what's being judged today. If we were to engage this discussion, our main point is simply this, that there is a complete lack of evidence to link directly that Omar Bashir had command responsibility over this incident. That he directed. The prosecution needs to establish that he directed intentionally the killing of civilians, and we contend that completely. This was a legitimate action by a sovereign state against an insurgency within that state, which it has the full legality to do, for it cannot declare war upon its own people. It is that Omar Bashir is the head of the state of Sudan and has every right to ensure the safety of the majority of his people. So the indictment does not show how Bashir is directly linked or responsible to this crime, because it has outlined that he's indirectly perpetrator or indirectly co-perpetrator. They are two totally different things. Whether or not Bashir acted with intent, or whether he failed in his capability intentionally, is what we need to discuss here today.
Yeah. Well, like I said before, we've been attacked by government forces before, so we recognise them well. These men, they wore the army uniform, the khaki uniform that the army wears. Mm-hmm. They drove in army registered trucks. They spoke Arabic and English. They were of mixed races like the army is. Okay. And after they had left, when we were counting the bodies, about 30 bodies, we went outside the camp and we found 3 government-issued identification cards for the military belonging to soldiers. And then 2 of the women found 4 guns. They said Government of Sudan on one side and from the People's Republic of China on the other.
And you're very sure of that?
Absolutely. I'm completely sure that these were government forces. Our own government, who was supposed to protect us, killed our men and raped our women, who were completely defenceless. It was.
And you say the killing was very organised?
Yes, absolutely. They knew what they were doing. They were government forces.
Okay, and you do not deny there was a military commander present at the time directing these men to do these?
I don't deny that, no, that's what I said. There were government forces.
Okay, so in your view, could it be said that this commander was in fact the person indirectly responsible for ordering his men to do these crimes?
Well, he
alleged
said,
crimes.
I mean, there were lots of government forces and there were people issuing commands, and he did say it was a government-sanctioned operation.